It's time for the Locals Only podcast with Dixon.
Yo, what's up, everybody? It's another edition of the Locals Only podcast. I am Dixon, joined by two members of the Kiwis this week. We've got John and Mike. Gentlemen, how are you?
Doing great. Thank you. How about yourself?
I'm great, man. I'm stoked to have you guys here. Since we last spoke, you've released the new record, Strange Danger, which has spawned a couple of singles that you've heard on the air, Alone Together and Mammoth. You guys have played a couple of shows in Rochester, and we recently announced that you guys will also be taking part in the 10-year anniversary live show of Locals Only, the show that this podcast is adjacent to. Thank you guys, first and foremost, so much for playing the show. I'm excited to see you live.
Yeah, thank you. We're really excited to play. We have a bunch of friends and family already super excited, getting ready to buy tickets. So it's going to be really fun for sure.
Now,
fun time.
You guys have been playing Rochester on the regular. Have you played a proper Syracuse show as the Kiwis?
No, this will be our first. So it'll be good because we've got, a lot of connections here, a lot of family here. So they've missed a few of our shows and they've been like, are you doing anything in Syracuse? And we're like, we've been just kind of like, stay tuned. So
Cool.
Super excited. Yeah. That the news is dropped and we can share that with everyone.
Yeah, I'm really excited because I'll be honest, I was a little bummed out. Like I saw like you guys had announced there was a show coming and I was like, oh, cool. I'm finally going to see this band. And then it was like at the club side of Water Street. And I was like, yeah, the old man's not driving to Rochester tonight.
No,
not on a work night, right? Like I don't sleep anyways, but like, how did you guys start like playing the Rochester scene prior to the hometown scene?
Yeah, so like 75% of the band goes to RIT. So
that makes sense.
It's kind of funny because people ask us where we're based, and it's like, where are we based currently? I guess Rochester. In the summer, we kind of are all disparate in our own, summer areas or wherever home is for us. So for us, it's Syracuse, me and my brother. But yeah, so that's why Water Street and some of those other shows first.
Very cool. Well, I'm just excited to get you guys into Syracuse. There's been a buzz about you guys since we dropped the first single. Mammoth only kind of led to the legend of the Kiwis, and people had a lot of questions, and now we're going to be able to answer them.
Cool.
Also, since we last talked, I did my due diligence and dug in because my wife is always very excited about finding new bands. She's a staunch supporter of local music as well.
Nice.
And while we have very different tastes, the night we did the release, we just sat on the couch in front of YouTube, and I was like, I'll find some music for you to check out from some of these bands that you don't know. And I found a video for an older song you guys did called Roman.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be honest, man, like I'm a little bummed out that when you guys released that, like you didn't send it in for the show, because that song, like it's a really cool song.
Yeah, it's fun. That was back, like that was almost 2 years ago, and we were kind of cutting our teeth. We had no idea, how to market a song or promote it. And we just kind of, that was like the first song we worked on when COVID hit. And we kind of, before that, we had sort of had a philosophy that like we would want to emulate production that like we could do in a live setting realistically with like a 2-piece. So a lot of it was like pretty traditional rock and roll, very minimal in terms of production. And then that was our first song. We're like, let's just do whatever. So it came out really great. We in retrospect, we probably could have shared it out with a few more places, but
that one would have been a hit, man. Like, not that the new ones aren't great, right? It was just so weird for me to find, because usually like when you work back through a band's catalog, you don't find gems. You usually find like, oh, well, I definitely see how they've progressed. For me, like both things are equally as good. And where with the new material, like the Strange Danger era of the Kiwis, it definitely has like a Rex Orange County vibe, right? We've talked about that. It reminds me of some things that I loved from the 2000s, like Coconut Records, or there's a couple of British bands that come to mind immediately. Where with Roman, like my brain immediately went like, oh, this sounds like Two Door Cinema Club, but like Baby No Money produced it.
Yeah.
And it just kind of clicked. And I'm just like, wow, these kids are genuinely brilliant. And I don't mean kids in a bad way. It's just
Yeah.
anybody younger than me, right? Like,
Right. Yeah.
but like finding that like made me so much more stoked about the new record because it showed like this depth, right? It showed a progression. And for me, I think that you guys are really on to something. I think that this show could be sort of like a coming out party for you, like scene wise. I know you guys didn't get a chance to jump into the announce on Tuesday, but like people were buzzing about you guys in the chat. Other musicians that were in the chat were stoked to find out that they were playing with you. You've gotten one of the bigger responses for a band that isn't necessarily established in the locals only spotlight with both trips that you've spent there, where people like, and I texted you or sent you a Facebook message. I think it was like the second night that Alone Together was on the spotlight at 6:05, and I had a listener hit me up and be like, "Yo, is that the new Rex Orange County?" And I was like, "How perfect is this?"
Right. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, we did a show at the Bug Jar, and someone came up to me after, and they were like, "You sound like Rex Orange County," and I was like, "That is a very big compliment." So, and exactly what we're going for. So it's always cool when like you spend like something you worked on in your bedroom for like years, and then people like kind of align with what you thought it sounded like. That's always kind of a nice thing. So super cool.
Very cool. I assume that Steve, who is also here in the Zoom with us, is one of the 75% that go to RIT.
Oh yeah, Mike. Yeah, he goes RIT. Yeah.
Yeah.
So did the band form around like the two of you, or like explain to me how we went from the two piece to now having basically a college band out at RIT? What was that process like?
Well, I'll start from my side of it. My brother goes to RIT, and so I think he had just heard our bassist playing, Simon, who is like an extremely talented musician all around, and he just like went up to him and was like, "Hey, do you want to play in my band?" And Simon was like, "Send me your stuff." So he sent him like demos at the time of like the songs that would make it onto Strange Danger, and then he was apparently on board, and we mentioned that we were also looking for a guitarist, and he was like, "I know a guy." So Mike kind of joined by proxy through Simon, which was cool. It's been really awesome to play with them. They're both like very accomplished musicians, and they bring their own kind of flavor to the songs. So they sound, I'm always a fan of like making live music sound different than the recording, and we certainly accomplished that, and a lot of that's because they brought their own things to the music. So
very cool. Well,
yeah.
let's hear the other perspective of what it's like to be the sort of the new guy, or the guy joining the sort of already established band.
Yeah. So I actually was reached out by Anthony, or from Simon, and he told me that I should expect a message from this dude called Anthony on Instagram. But I don't actually really check Instagram all that much for messaging, and so I actually missed it for like a couple weeks, and it was really like sad that I nearly missed the call for this band, because like I don't normally I got messaged in a place where I don't normally check messages, and so now looking back on it, I kind of laugh about it a little bit. And now it's kind of just I put my own flavor and my own kind of influence into the band, and that really reflects in like a lot of solos and stylistic choices for rhythm guitar and comping and all that stuff. And so it's really cool because like the music's really great. It's a lot of fun to play. It's also difficult to play, and I think it's really fun to just kind of have something which is different from anything that's I've really seen before or anything that I'm really experienced with. So having a new challenge to come into my life has been really great.
Very cool. Well, you mentioned bringing your influences to the table. Who would you say, like, some of your main influences, both like as whole bands, and then on the other hand, like as guitar players? Who are some of your main influences?
So as a child, one of the main bands that I picked up once I started playing guitar was the Red Hot Chili Peppers. Anthony Kiedis, John Frusciante, Chad Smith, Flea, obviously. And I really progressed a lot of my guitar technique around John Frusciante's style of influence of like Hendrix kind of playing, and really focusing on a melodic sound as opposed to a really technologically impressive display. And so when I do solos, I always make it a challenge to myself to kind of pull myself back a bit and make something that sounds really interesting without needing to like play a million notes. And I think that's a really big challenge that a lot of people nowadays don't really do, because they just kind of, oh, can I sweep pick this massive like chord progression all the way through 16th notes, 160 BPM or something like that. And I'm just like, that's very technically impressive, but I don't think that sounds good. You want to make something that sounds good, and I think that's really hard to do. So I always strive to make something that sounds really musical. At the end of the day, you can hum the solo back. I love that when you can do that. So that's really kind of my influences of John Frusciante. He's the poster I have up on my wall, and his style of playing is really kind of what made me as a guitar player, what brought me up to this level. So he's my main influence. He's my number one.
I don't disagree with you. I am at this point in my life embarrassed to admit it, but I have not only their logo tattooed on my shin, but caricatures of that traditional lineup that is now back together from the Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Mm-hmm.
Younger me was a tad impulsive. But yeah, I totally understand what you mean about John, though, because John's a very emotive player, right? Like you can feel what he's trying to get across with every note because he's pouring it through his fingertips into that instrument. And I'm just going to go off on a quick tangent. Like the version of the Red Hot Chili Peppers with that Josh kid that tried to be John, both like stylistically and looks wise, sucked, right? Like, I know that dude's in like another popular band. It might be like Gorillaz or something.
Jam,
yeah. Just whatever, man. Go back to what you were doing. Like, I appreciate you filling in for a little while. But like, it was just, I don't know, it felt cheap, right? Like, here's this kid that's trying really hard to be John Frusciante when like Navarro didn't do that with One Hot Minute, right? Like, he just came in and like, he was Dave Navarro in the Red Hot Chili Peppers, and that record stands out in that way. I feel like the couple of records that Josh played on could have also been that thing, but I'm also at the same time just stoked that John's back, that they did the record with Rick Rubin.
Mm-hmm.
Like it has a very Blood Sugar Sex Magic feel to it in a weird way, like at least
Very
tonally.
so. Yeah.
And while I'm not a huge fan of the record as a whole because of Anthony Kiedis's vocal approach, I'm not sure where the accent came from this time around. It's great to see a younger person appreciate a player like John, who I think goes under the radar for not only guitar players in general, but for a younger generation to understand why some players play the way they do, you know, whether it's Steve Lacy or, you know, any of the other sort of like Brooklyn-esque bands. Like, did you ever listen to any of the Frusciante solo stuff from right after he left the Chili Peppers in the early 90s?
I don't know if it's the early 90s, but I'm a big fan of Shadows Collide with People, that album.
That's a newer one.
That's a newer one. Okay.
Yeah. There was
some of the older stuff I'm not too familiar with, but that one, I think Empyrean, maybe a bit of that.
Yeah,
And,
there was one that came out like and I hate. Well, here's the thing. John was in a bad place when he left the Chili Peppers,
Yes.
right? So like a lot of heroin, a lot of like bad stuff, right? Like I don't dive into it, but like there's a lot of video that exists that you can go watch from around that era. But he put out a record called Niada Ladres and Usually Just a Plain White T-Shirt.
Yeah.
And man, like there are a couple of tunes on that had he like actually written lyrics and not just cussed for the sake of cussing, that were phenomenal songs. And then like the other part where it was like 42 unnamed pieces that were just, you know, number one, number two, you could literally hear a genius going mad on heroin. And it gives you so much insight into why he's the player he is.
No, his musicianship is off the walls, and that's something I try and emulate whenever I play with the band. And I haven't really reached his levels of cocaine and drugs and life falling apart yet.
Yeah.
But
I urge you not to. I urge you not to. It'll end up poorly. All of your big, wonderful tattoos that are in pictures for decades will decay from the inside of your body, and you have to wear a shirt on stage. Yeah, I mean,
Red Hot.
I'm happy that he's healthy again, right? And I'm happy that he's back in a place where he's making art. And I apologize for taking the Kiwis interview to a weird Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Oh, no, that's cool.
I'm all here for it.
But I love that the influences of the band are going to affect what that live show is going to be May 29th, which is the 10-year anniversary show of Locals Only, 495X. The Kiwis are part of it. It also features Onacon, The Burning River, Matty Dale Music Collective, Gary Carpentier, who's also playing Festapalooza-thon this summer, Council, Puddle, Sierra Sunset, and Good God. It's $10. And the best part for me, hopefully you guys are on board with this too, is that the proceeds are all going to benefit the Food Bank of Central New York.
Yeah,
so I figure, what better way to like create a community event than by giving everything we can back to the community, right? Like,
yeah, for sure.
My hopes are that by us embracing the community then embraces young acts like yourself, because I've been at this for way longer than I want to say out loud. And Syracuse has always been that city that's let great bands like you guys go unnoticed. And, you know, in my earlier years, it was difficult for me to sit back and watch. And I didn't have the ability to like really do anything other than stand up and be real loud about it. But now I've got the biggest amplifier ever. It's 50,000 watts and it sits on a big hill. And I blast this stuff out to 70,000 people a week.
Yeah.
No more will fantastic young bands like the Kiwis go unnoticed on my watch. I'm so proud of you guys. Like,
thank you.
I'm always like extra like thrilled about things like this when somebody comes out of nowhere, right? Like, you know, certain people get all the press, right? And they play all the time. And then the truly great sit sort of in the back seat, right? We're not in the back seat no more. We're going to put 8 of the best bands that Syracuse has to offer on one stage, May 29th. We're going to showcase some young talent, right? Like, there's no gatekeeping in the Locals Only world. It's all about like showcasing legendary bands like Onacon, The Burning River, and sharing that same stage with young bands like yourself and Puddle. Because ultimately, like, it's, man, this is delving off into socio-political territory, but the people above me never gave my generation an opportunity, right? And then I'm watching my generation do the same thing. So it's time that we as Gen X need to step up and understand that, like, yeah, we're probably never going to ascend to the top of this, but man, we can help like the younger generations do it, right? Like, we could be the grandparents, right? Remember how your grandparents, like your mom and dad would say no, or like, you know, like, and then grandma would always like give you the cookie, right? Like,
yeah, you can
be grandma with the cookie, right? Like, here's the keys to everything. Here's how it works. We'll be over here relaxing for the first time in 50 years.
Right.
If you need anything, text us.
Yeah.
We don't like answering the phone either. I think there's a bright future for you guys. What comes next now that Strange Danger is out in the world? You've got the Syracuse show. I know there'll probably be at least one more show in Rochester before the school year's over, maybe?
Before the school year's over, I don't know, because it's wrapping up sooner than I would always think. We definitely have some other stuff lined up for the summer. We're sitting on a lot of unwritten music, so we're hoping to release at least an EP by the end of the summer, or have it ready to send off to our engineer by the end of the summer. And we've been playing a few new songs from that too, so that's been cool to mix into the live repertoire. But that's on the immediate horizon. Yeah.
Very cool. I can't wait to hear what comes next for you guys. Stoked to see the first Syracuse show from Syracuse, New York's The Kiwis, which is Band of Kiwis on social media, in case y'all are wondering. That's the easiest way to find them, tag them, follow them. And you guys have your music streaming everywhere. I listen to it. I'm probably responsible for 5 to 10% of your weekly listens in town on Spotify.
Appreciate that. Yeah, our parents make up the other 50%, right? No.
Very cool. So people can find you real easy. The music's out there and everywhere. Are there physical copies of Strange Danger if anybody wants to pick one up?
Not yet. We'd love to do that. We'd love to get some actual merch out. We've had a bunch of people reach out and ask us about that, and it's in the works, but you know, stuff like that is difficult to juggle with like finals season and
totally understand that
we're going through. So
very cool. Well, once again, gentlemen, thank you so much for taking the time tonight. It's been an absolute pleasure getting to know you guys a little bit better. I look forward to being able to spend some in-person time with all of you, getting to know you May 29th for the 10-year anniversary live show for locals only, 495X. Follow these guys, Band of Kiwis, across all social media. Get the details. By the time this actually comes out, tickets are on sale. At the moment when we're recording it, they are not on sale. When this airs, they will be on sale. They're $10. They're at 95x.com. Support your local music scene and also support your community, because all of the proceeds that we raise and generate after expenses go directly to the food bank of Central New York. So, John, Mike, thank you so much for taking the time tonight. Come see these guys live May 29th and be prepared. 2022, it's the year of the Kiwis.